Welcome back to Valverde Broadcasting. I didn't say back, I said bat, like Batman, which is what we're talking about today, because Matt Reeves's Robert Pattinson's The Batmans, which comes out in 2021, has been slowly trickling its pre-cum onto the internet in the form of a picture of Duncan audibly groaned when I said that. Ew. Batman, as Duncan pointed out, developing photos in his darkroom. Some kind of shaky handycam footage of what I presume is a stuntman riding a motorbike around Glasgow Cemetery, and now pictures of the new Batmobile. This film is being directed by Matt Reeves, as we've discussed. It was originally to be directed by and starring Ben Affleck, who pulled out due to very unpleasant-sounding personal reasons and the such like, so he's off to different things now, God bless him. So Robert Pattinson has stepped in. Whole new cast, no carries over from Justice League. It's co-written by Mattson Tomlin, who co-wrote this with Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves, best known in my eyes, for the Planet of the Apes sequels and Cloverfield. I'm an Apes fan, as you know. I have mixed feelings about the Apes sequels.
Yeah.
How could I be so wrong? It was Earth all along.
Apes prequels, I suppose, not sequels, right?
No, well, because he did the sequel to the kind of new trilogy, because they're not really prequels.
Yeah.
Like Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a remake of the fourth Planet of the Apes film, and I don't think they work as prequels to the original movies, because they reuse the same. Anyway, that's a different discussion. But he didn't do the first one. Rupert Wyatt did Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Matt Reeves did War of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
See, I like those films. I think they're very good.
Yeah, I don't dislike them. I think Rise of the Planet of the Rise of the Planet of the Apes was significantly superior to both of them, and I also kind of feel the other ones weren't necessary. I liked them, I just didn't think they were as good as Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which, again, was a kind of a loose remake of the fourth Planet of the Apes film, which was originally from a spec script, I think, called Caesar, because Caesar was the character in the fourth and fifth Planet of the Apes films after the death of his father Cornelius. Why don't you watch the Planet of the Apes films, Duncan? Anyway, I'm sure. So I think that's what Matt Reeves' kind of big thing was those, and Cloverfield, of course. He is childhood friend of J.J. Abrams, which I think that's why Cloverfield was a two-hander between those two guys. So what we know about the Batman, we've seen the cast, we've seen the Batmobile, we've seen the Batman. What say you for these developments?
Well, firstly, in terms of the Batman, I guess it's the suit, really. I mean, I think Robert Pattinson looks fine in it. It's have we talked about the suit? I think we did, didn't we?
We touched on it a wee bit. Yeah, we've met up and stuff since that all happened. But we talked about it briefly.
Because I do think it looks good. I tell you this though, I think I'm more excited now that I've seen the Batmobile, because I think I get it now, whereas I wasn't really getting it from the suit. The suit kind of looked like some sort of. It was very post Nolan, and it had the armoured thing going on. And it was very post Arkham games, and it you didn't really see it in its entirety. And then obviously when we had the stuntman riding around Glasgow, which could have just been a drunk person, it probably wasn't.
Yes, it is Glasgow after all.
Yes. But because we can say that because we're from there, sort of, not really. Again, you kind of got more of a cold light of day look at the suit, sans cape, it looked. I was kind of like, oh, that looks very like stuck together. Like not like it wasn't. It didn't seem that cohesive. But then I was like, that could be a great thing. I don't know. And then now seeing the Batmobile and him stood next to it, I'm like, I think I get this now. And it's very much the sort of world's greatest detective. It's a muscle car. It's the suggested bat wings from the rear wheel arches, sort of the haunches that go over it are a nice touch. It's even got a touch of the 60 thing about it. It's got the big exposed mid-mounted engine. It looks like a thing where he looks like he's taken a Dodge Challenger or something, or a Charger, and ripped the guts out of it and stuck it in the back for like better weight distribution or whatever, and gadgets, so you can put gadgets in the front. And it just really looks like, we've always railed against this idea, and certainly Batman Begins was an answer to the whole how did Bruce Wayne make that. without anyone knowing, and it's like, this looks like the result of him doing exactly that. You know, so it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a very. So I tweeted a while back that I like the look of the suit from Batman developing his photos. I like that look.
Mm-hmm.
I'm less sure, having seen it from the Glasgow footage, but that's the classic thing of when some fucker with an iPhone films someone in costume on set. It's not lit by the cinematographer. It's not lensed by the cinematographer. It's not being, that's a stuntman riding a bike up a road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not going to look how it's supposed to look how it will look in the film. These Batmobile pics, it's kind of a muscle car. So that I think we're back in Batman Begins territory in a sense, in that this is a grounded Batman, more realistic take on Batman. But the grounded, more realistic Batman from Batman Begins was very much lent into technology billionaire, with all his military equipment, where this is, like you say, dude with a muscle car and a motorbike.
Yeah. Which
I'm into. I like it. It gives it that kind of, it's kind of more that kind of Batman Year One-ish feel, where everything's quite basic. There was a Frank Miller, he of Batman Year One and Dark Knight Returns and stuff, who gets talked about a lot around these parts. He wrote a kind of treatment for a Batman Year One thing, where Batman was kind of like this schizophrenic homeless guy, and Alfred was like a mechanic called Big Al, and he drove around in like a beaten up restored muscle car. Which shockingly never got made. So it gave me vibes of that, to be honest. A bit of pushback on Twitter going like, oh well, Robert Pattinson's just a kid. He's 3 years older than Christian Bale was when he played Batman in Batman Begins.
is he really?
Yeah, he's like, but Christian Bale was 30, he's 33. He's a couple of years younger than us. Like he looks more fresh faced. I hate that, right? Whenever there's a new Batman or whatever, or a new Bond, we just talked about Bond, people have these kind of like little circular hissy fits about it. It's kind of like, he's this, he's that. And I think it's like, oh, he's just a pretty boy from Twilight. And it's like, no, he's an actor. You see, what he does is he pretends to be different things. And just because the first time you saw him was like a pretty vampire doesn't mean he's actually a pretty vampire. I haven't seen The Lighthouse, but reportedly very good in it, and I think sort of just going like, he was in Twilight and that's for gals, that's intellectually lazy. Like, I'm sorry, but it's sort of like all those twats when Heath Ledger got cast as Joker. It's kind of like, he's from the gay cowboy film, what is he going to kiss Batman on the face even though Batman's a boy? There was actually that kind of shit was going around at the time. And it's
historically, it's always the sort of left field or out of left, you know what I mean? The kind of random the apparently risky choice always pays off. When they've gone safe, like Ben Affleck or people like, not that it's his fault, but it's like, it doesn't work because, and I believe certainly with superheroes, it's because, I mean, Robert Pattinson's on the cusp. Don't get like, he's not an unknown, so it's not, it isn't like they've gone to anywhere. It's like, like to pricks like me. It's like he's he's a known quantity, but it is a real left field choice that I think it speaks to some daringness. And this the Batmobile, the Batsuit, everything is really fresh. But then when you see it together, like those shots of the Batmobile, him stood next to the Batmobile where it's all lit. There's the one that's sort of like a crane shot or something looking down on it, but then there's two kind of from the sort of rear quarter of the car, and he's sort of standing next to it, and then one from the back. And it's like that whole world and the car. I mean, I'm sure that's all digitally put in, but it's like, it looks, you could get it now. It's like, that's what that looks like in that world. That all looks really like, it looks stylized. It's like, what I like about it is it's not the sort of utilitarian thing that Nolan did that I love, but it like that felt very much like you really were hemmed in by the fact that this all had to be sort of not real world, but it had that verisimilitude that you really couldn't stray from. And then arguably, I think what let that series down was that they did stray outside of it, and it's like, well, you set up all these rules and now you're kind of breaking them. This looks like it will still be a fairly fantastical world, or at least a very stylized one, but it's like everything's gonna be kind of, I don't know, it's all kind of cobbled together, and I think as well, like, not to get too wanky about it, but like taking a vehicle, I mean, it's not, I don't think it is a recognizable brand of vehicle, but it obviously looks a lot like a Dodge or a less so a Mustang, but it's got that kind of that muscle car look, but you've ripped the engine out and stuck it in the back, It's like that. I like that because that speaks to this kind of Batman's mentality. It's like take the thing and make it work for you. You know, it's like Batman's. I mean, not to quote Batman versus Superman, but he's saying it's like the world only makes sense if you force it to, and that kind of ethos permeating like his equipment, being like, I'm just literally gonna rip it out and stick it together the way I want it, and I'm gonna make it work. That kind of ethos looks quite, you know, it looks very, in terms of production design, it looks very cohesive, and it looks like they've really put some thought into the kind of character's mindset and stuff with all of this.
Yeah, I think it plays into they would appear to be a clear and confident aesthetic, you know, based on that. I mean, in terms of Robert Pattinson, it's a 6'1", 30-year-old, brown-haired, square-jawed white guy. It's Batman. You know,
yeah,
it's Batman. I don't know what more you want, like in that regard, and I do think he's a decent actor. It's completely. I view it as pretty much a safe choice in that regard. I in no way think he's a bad actor just because of some stuff he's been in the past that I didn't like. You know, it's not how this works.
No.
Like you say, I think a lot of what we've seen betrays the aesthetic, which appears to be sort of things are cobbled together. It's a kind of early on Batman. The costume is kind of the uniform. No, well, it's not a uniform. It can't be a uniform if there's just one person wearing it. The costume is. Yeah, kind of Arkham-y, but kind of cobbled together. He seems to have, if you look on the thumbnail that I have chosen for this very video, you can see his eyes, whereas in the Glasgow footage, he appears to have some kind of lenses over them as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about because they don't look like goggles or anything like that. He's not wearing a cape in that footage, so I assume that's going to be added with CGI. You know, so I think a lot of what we've seen thus far is pretty pleasing. Which is good. And Andy Serkis returns with Matt Reeves as Alfred, which that's cool.
Be a mocap Alfred.
He's a mocap Alfred. He's going to be a fucking chimp or a Komodo dragon or something.
That's one of those like little known facts that Andy Serkis was actually he insisted on doing it mocap, so they had to make him CGI mocap. Absolutely. The goggles thing. So they're like the lenses that you were talking about. There's two schools of thought though. Like that might be just simply because the stunt rider needs eye protection. I
was wondering about that. Yeah,
but then it does seem like a kind of stylized thing to do. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it could very much just be a safety thing. It's hard to say. I do quite like Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. I really like Jeffrey Wright. I think he's got this like he's one of these people that's just got this ridiculous amount of gravity. Like he's sort of he's got this kind of like Black Orson Welles vibe that I really like. And I think him versus if you have kind of pretty boy Robert Pattinson and then kind of like, you know, chewed up looking Jeffrey Wright with his kind of like deep voice and stuff. I think that's a great juxtaposition between the two characters. But you know, you got quite green Batman, quite a seasoned looking Gordon, so that's cool. Colin Farrell as the Penguin. I don't dislike. I don't dislike that. I just find it hard to care. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone was interesting.
I mean,
and
these. I think. A cynical man would say that these are choices that have been made deliberately to be kind of out of left field. You know, it's like I think some of these do feel a bit like, oh, you weren't expecting that, were you? But it's kind of like I don't think they've done that. I think there's I just don't think we're kind in you know in the same breath of saying you know that people who decry these choices as being stupid. I think more so now it's almost like we've kind of gone the other way. And we're like, yeah, okay. I mean,
well, I find this cast, if I'm completely honest, like, and I need to. What I haven't really covered yet is how I actually feel about the fact this film exists, which I'm sure we'll cover that in a moment. Right. But I find this cast kind of safe, if I'm honest.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, with interesting stuff, but it's all kind of quite bankable and fairly well known. I mean, if you were kind of like, Catwoman's going to be played by Nicolas Cage, then that'd be like, whoa, you know, not going to happen.
Why not? I can do that. Sure.
Yeah, Cage for Catwoman, you cowards.
Well, what's it, Zoe Kravitz, isn't it?
Zoe Kravitz, yeah, who I've not. All I know her for really is being Lenny Kravitz's daughter.
I have seen her in some TV, but apart from
well, she's in Fury Road, and I know there's that new version of High Fidelity that she's been in. But yeah, I don't really I yeah, I think she was. Hold on a minute. Let me just check something. I need to be sure about this because I read this somewhere. Hold on. Yeah, so she was Catwoman in the Lego Batman film.
Ah, okay. There you go.
It's like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I thought that was a joke when I heard that. Unless someone's been monkeying around with IMDb. Yeah, fine. Fine with that. I mean, again, this is what I mean. I'm sure she's going to be great in that. I'm not that bothered. It's sort of like Colin Farrell as Penguin. Like Colin Farrell, he used to get that pretty boy shtick, but then after doing things like In Bruges and a bunch of other stuff, he has got real range if he wants it. Him as the Penguin, yeah, fine. John Turturro's Carmine Falcone, yeah, that's cool.
There's, I think is it Earth One? I believe is where a lot of this is coming from. So in that, the Penguin, through some of it, it's Batman suspects that he had a hand in killing his parents. So there's like stuff, and there's things that people have seen that sort of suggest that might be what they're doing. So there's a sort of at least for some of the story, Batman is going to be pursuing Cobblepot because he thinks he had a hand in his parents' death. Turns out he didn't, obviously. But and then there's something to do with like the within that story. There's a serial killer going around, which I think is the Riddler in this potentially, or something. Yeah,
they got the Riddler. There's talk that there's going to be. Hush in this as well.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I mean, there seems to be with the Penguin recently. We seem to have moved far away from the Burgess Meredith one. I mean, because I think about like Robin Taylor in Gotham, very very camp, but it's kind of like thin dude, not
yeah.
And weirdly, did you play the Arkham games?
Yeah.
Penguin's kind of some shit Cockney.
He's a shit Cockney with with a milk bottle jaggedly smashed into his eye. It's like, right,
that's like very. Here, Bartman, come here and do like a crime on me or something. Everybody
does my head in when they get some American to do an English accent. It's like, it doesn't sound like that. Yeah, it's just like saying, Bartman, come here, you. Oh, you.
Oh, done a bloody crime, Bartman.
Somebody catch the blighter. No one says blighter. No one says that.
Oh, fuck it. Yeah, that strange Dick Van Dyke-ish portrayal. So, but it looks like we're going for kind of suave, sexy Penguin, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it can come down to, like, he's got the name just simply because he goes around in a tux or whatever, it's like that.
He goes around in a little fiberglass penguin car. I don't know if he's going to end it, because the thing with Cobblepot in Gotham is that, like, he had a limp.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know. I just don't know. I will. Here's the thing, right? So I think there's a lot of clear aesthetic choices, and this is what a bunch of people that have already turned off are going to miss me saying. There's a clear, strong aesthetic, without question. Not worried about that. And I often say this in trailer discussions. This isn't a trailer discussion, but I often say this in trailer discussions. And I always my caveat is always that I like to be proven wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the point in this is. I'm happy. I do know what the point is to make money, but like I don't need another Batman film right now.
No,
particularly one that appears to be young Batman comes out and does Batman stuff. If they came out with some crazy live action Gotham by the Gaslight or Pirate Batman, if they did something nuts, I'd be like, okay. But yet another kind of like Batman investigates the mystery. I'm just like, okay, fine. Like it just feels like it's being made out of obligation rather than any kind of desire to tell this story again. Really? I mean, again, prove me wrong. I will always say that. I always make sure to say that. Prove me wrong, and I will like it if it's good. But I just don't really know if we need to do this again so soon.
It does play into two things. I mean, firstly, it does play into that thing that always seems to happen, which is that like when these things, like even with Batman Begins, that was still based on the spec script or whatever for what would have been the third Joel Schumacher film. Batman Triumphant or whatever, because it had the same, it had the Scarecrow, it had, I think that one was supposed to have all those characters in it, Ra's al Ghul and stuff, so it's like this is sort of looking like is what they were going to do with the Batman for Ben Affleck, but it's like they'll have retooled it. I mean, so there's that. I see what you mean as well, because it's like I think Warner Brothers were under the same cosh that certainly sort of the Marvel properties were until recently. You know, this whole thing of having to make one every few years in order to retain licenses. It's like Warner Brothers aren't that, and I think that
they own DC Comics.
Yeah,
and
I gather that they're sort of doing this now. DC Comics is going through a thing at the moment where it's called. It's a really bad name to choose, but it's called like 5G or something, which is like the mobile network thing. But it's not. It's a retooling of their New 52 and all that. They've called it 5G, and apparently this has to work. Otherwise, DC Comics could go under or something. Not sure,
right.
But whatever.
Like it has done for the last 100 years.
Yeah. But so there's that going on in the background, and then I suppose they're looking at like these movie properties have to be big and huge and make lots of money, and I suppose it is frustrating, because I just don't need another Batman origin. If we have to see the fucking Wayne's funeral again, and the pearls on the ground and the flowers and in the rain, it's like, oh god, all right, we get it. Don't do that again, for God's sake, please don't do that again.
I hope I'm giving this sort of preemptive credit. I'm hoping it's smarter than that. It's. Oh, someone just knocked on my bloody door. Oh, sorry,
That's
man.
right.
Can I just...
Yeah.
Give me a sec. Nice. Yeah. Oh, I do work from home, but I do what hours. So. All right, no worries. Fucking next door getting their fucking post. What's the time code on that?
That's being self-employed, isn't it? Everyone's fucking mail receiver.
Right. Sorry. What were you saying? Just
you were saying about them being smart enough not to do the origin thing again.
Oh yes. Okay. So I think that I'd like to think they're smarter than to just do the origin again. It would be fucking scandalous if you ever see the Waynes die again, because keeping in mind they just did that in Joker as well. Spoilers.
Yeah.
But one thing, I happen to like the Marvel Spider-Man films. I don't think they're amazing. I think they're great, fun, live-action cartoons, that they've done a good job of those. One thing that I think they did, which was the right thing to do, was just to have Spider-Man already be Spider-Man and not show us Uncle Ben, because we don't need to see that again.
Well, they kind of got.
We all know what happened.
Yeah, they kind of got to have their cake and eat it too on that as well, because obviously firstly because he was then part of the Marvel universe, and I think those films. I agree. I mean, I like Homecoming and I like Far From Home, but they were. I think they worked as part of the Marvel universe. I think that obviously he then had the surrogate father in Tony Stark, who got killed. So it was like he kind of got to lose his father figure again. So I mean, in that, and I want them to play that up more. I'm not sure Far From Home really delved into that enough, which was to say, look, he keeps losing surrogate fathers, and that's probably something we ought to play on a bit more. But anyway, I hear it's like, I mean, I think you can assume your audience knows. Like, I just don't see the point in. And then the trouble is like doing like what they did in Batman vs Superman is some sort of flashback. It's like, please don't, because firstly, it's always been told in flashback, and secondly, it's like I just don't need to see it. I don't think, and I haven't looked. I'm going to look now, but I don't think there's anyone in the cast who is Thomas Wayne or Martha Wayne. Is there?
No, hold on, I did have the page open. Yeah, no, it doesn't seem that way, and I fucking hope not. I mean, there are people credited as being at a funeral. However, Batman's been seen driving around a graveyard, so fine. Unless he went to his parents' funeral 30 years too late or whatever. That's not really.
They're all still there waiting for him. It took him that long.
Yeah. And there's another thing just to mention in regards to that. Something else I want to get onto as well. People have been saying like, oh well, the bat on his chest is made out of the gun that killed his parents. Is it? Is it?
Yeah. Well, it looks like.
Is it though? Does it look like a gun? It's just bits of metal.
No. So if you look at the bits that join in the middle, they are because on guns with the pistol grip, you've got like essentially inserts that go in them that are like form the grip. It does
Right.
look like. I think someone found the gun that it would look like, but I mean, it's
Because it seems there's a comic that did that recently.
yeah. Kevin Smith wrote it actually. I can't remember what it was called now, but there was one where he melted it down though. It wasn't like it looked like the gun. It was.
Well, that's. I mean, I'm not really.
I mean, I don't care to be honest. I think it's kind of like.
Yeah.
I think
I don't. In terms of a creative choice, fine, but I just don't really see it. Hey, I could be very wrong. But
what does that mean as well? It's like I wear it on my chest as a reminder of like why.
I'm immune to guns now, I guess.
Yeah, I keep it close to my heart. Like, what? Like, I don't. It kind of looks like a bat or whatever, sort of. And it's like, well, yeah. I mean,
God.
tentatively. But I mean, yeah, it's. I don't think that's as sort of symbolically important as people seem to make out. But.
Well, I'm not really convinced that's what it is either. I mean, it's got kind of like. Yeah, I guess they look a bit like pistol grips, but really.
There is a thing. I'll look for it now while we're talking. But there is a thing where it shows kind of the gun next to it. I'm just trying to find it now.
Right. Okay.
Well,
whilst you're looking for that, I was just also the music is by Michael Giacchino, who I would also kind of argue is quite a safe choice. He's done a lot of film scores in the last few years, including Doctor Strange. He also took over as the composer on the Star Trek series, and I really liked his work on the Star Trek films. I think Matt Reeves has brought him over from the Apes films as well, and Cloverfield, so those guys have got history. He's done all sorts. I mean, he's a really popular composer at the moment. Did Rogue One. I mean, Rogue One I felt sounded like the Star Wars music from like a porn parody, but you know, mind. But apparently he had to do that at really short notice. But I really liked his Star Trek music, and you know, those are big shoes to fill. I'm not easy to please in that regard because you're taking over from kind of Goldsmith, Attal, you know, really big names worked on the Star Trek music, and I like the theme he created for the new Star Trek films. I think not getting Hans Zimmer again and not getting Danny Elfman again is a good thing completely. He did do the Spider-Man Homecoming soundtrack as well, so you know, he's in Marvel Town. So you know, sure. I think it's safe. That feels safe to me. He is a good composer, but that feels like a safe choice rather than anything else.
He was in Bond as well. It's like, come on, I don't want.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. So he's doing everything.
So I don't want like Zimmer everything because it is a bit.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing against Zimmer. I mean, he's a very, very good composer, but it's like I want some variety. I want a film. I suppose what I mean is I want a film to not feel like, you know, like especially with a Batman film, it's like you kind of want it to feel like something made to be what it is. That's really vague, but you know what I mean. It's that.
Yeah,
thing,
no,
do you know what I mean?
you,
like to be a creative team's vision rather than we got the bloke done this to be it because he's a big name. And it's like, yeah, but is he right for it? You know, that always feels the thing. Like Zimmer, don't get me wrong, Zimmer has pulled it off more than he hasn't, but it's still like I do feel like it's just to put his name on it. And I just think but there's so many other composers out there. Like Junkie XL, I think is a really good composer. But, you know.
Yeah, I do as well. I really, really do. But apparently that's not allowed because he's not an orchestra. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I really like those kind of electronics. I really like the Deadpool score. I really like the Wonder Woman theme that he created. So you know, I think not being Hans Zimmer is an underrated quality. I think when in a world of kind of Junkie XLs and Clint Mansells, there should be more in that direction. But that's just me. You know. Well, shall we close this course of owls?
I reckon
Batman reference.
Yes, we've got to talk that through. Basically, like it. I like the look of it. I'm quite happy with it. I'm quite happy to get a different version of Batman. Like you say, I don't think it's necessary, but you know, it's one of those things where like in 5-10 years time, it'll just be another Batman film that is in there. And will it be one we go to more often than anything else? Maybe, who knows? You know, it's like I think it looks like it's going to stand out in lots of ways, and hopefully it'll be good. But I want it to be good.
Yeah, of course we do. Yeah. I mean, I would struggle to see what the point is again so soon, but I'll probably watch it. I'll probably end up reviewing it for this with you.
Well, I suppose do you know what as well though? I think why it's so soon is because it was supposed to be part of the Ben Affleck DCEU thing, and it's like I think if they were going to, in an ideal world, if they were going to reboot Batman, they would have done it further down the line. But it's the fact that the train had left the station on this, and so it had to be redone after that. So I suppose we have to give them a break on that side, I suppose. But
yeah, well, let's see again. I mean, my overriding kind of thing is that it's a little bit safe. I think I don't find it terribly exciting on the whole, but there's a lot of nice stuff in it, and I certainly have no problem whatsoever with the way it's been cast. No. Which is what everyone always bitches about whenever they do James Bond or Batman or Doctor Who. These characters that are endlessly recast, people fucking whinge, regardless of who it is and when.
Yeah.
So you go. Well, that's it, I reckon. If you are new around these parts, do think about subscribing. That would be lovely. We do shows every Monday. Our show It Ain't Broke, which we're probably going to rebrand soon to something else, which is kind of a half-hour movie review show. We do feature-length movie commentaries, and every now and then we do kind of little half-hour discussions such as this. You can find more details below in the description. We have a Redbubble shop and all that social style media that the children like these days. We don't have TikTok because we're not that cool. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we will see you again next time we do a thing. Goodbye.
Goodbye.